All right, it's 2:00 on the dot, so why don't we get started? Hey everyone, welcome to day 2 of Indiana Arts Homecoming. My name is Jingo M. De La Rosa, and I'm the co-chair for this year's Homecoming Steering Committee. I am so thrilled to welcome you to this breakout session, which is ComicCon's Curating Curiosity and Creativity in Your Community. I'm a little bit of a comic book nerd, just a little bit, and I also love museums, so like this is a marriage made in heaven for me. And today's session will be led by Karen Malone and Tara Kopka. But before we get started, just a few things that I'd like to go over, some few housekeeping notes. Please remain muted during the presentation until the Q&A, so we can give our full attention to today's presenters. And also feel free to utilize the chat function to introduce yourself, ask questions throughout the session. However, questions will be answered after the presentation during our Q&A. Also, if you would like to rename yourself in Zoom, you can do so by hovering over your image, clicking those 3 magical dots, and selecting rename. Captioning is also available during the session and throughout the conference. You can turn those on by clicking the closed caption button in the bottom navigation bar. Also, if you have any questions or tech issues throughout the session, please feel free to send our resident tech whiz, Sarah, hi Sarah, a direct message in the chat. She'll be more than happy to answer any questions or help you out. And with that, I am turning it over to Karen and Tara so we can get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here today. We're really excited to talk to you about ComicCons, curating curiosity and creativity in your community. Like Jinko said, I'm Karen and this is Tara, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about our event that we've been doing for the past 5 years. This event is called the Evansville Museum Geek and ComicCon, and we both work at the Evansville Museum of Arts, History, and Science located here in southwestern Indiana. Throughout our presentation, we're going to share with you some tips of some things we've learned and ways you could also do an event like this at your institution, organization, or maybe just by yourself. All right, let's get started. You don't have to click that. Sorry, I won't try to make high-pitched squeaky noises throughout the entire presentation. Let's see. Well, the first thing is we were going to ask how many of you have been to a Comic-Con, but since we can't see you, we're going to, I know a couple people here. So what is a Comic-Con? It's a convening of fans of pop culture and movies and fandoms. So we're talking things like Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, anime, anything geeky. And what's most important, it is a new way for you to engage with your community. If you haven't been to a con before, they often include panel presentations, special guests. You can have an artist alley and vendor room where you can go and buy stuff, a cosplay contest, and by cosplay, we mean costumes, fun hands-on activities, as well as food vendors, sometimes live music performances, lots of cool stuff. So the big question is, why do a Comic-Con? Why sink a lot of time and energy into making an event like this? Well, there's a lot of benefits for your institution or organization. It's a great way of a new way of engaging with new audiences. It's a fantastic way of highlighting art that we experience in our daily life. I think sometimes we miss how much art is in movies and TV shows and comic books. This is a really great way to celebrate that art. It's also a fantastic way to celebrate local artists, as well as connect people interested in pursuing a career in artists with artists who already do this for a living. And it's also a wonderful event where the community creates the content. We really want you to take away from this presentation is that you can do this too. We're going to walk you through the process of making a Comic-Con, and we can show you how you can apply it to your own situation.
And one thing we want to highlight, we're going to say Comic-Con a lot, but keep in mind that you can run any sort of event. You might want to do something quirky like if you have a historic home, doing like a Victorian high tea, or a murder mystery dinner, or a event themed around a cultural holiday or something to match an art exhibition you have on display. So be prepared. This is all about thinking outside the box, but we're going to say Comic-Con a lot because that's our event.
Awesome. Okay, So our very first tip for all of you is if you're going to do an event like this, is to start early. A quality event takes time, and I'm sure you know that from your experiences as well in other types of events. We have found that organic, i.e. free marketing, works best, and it takes a lot of time. And if you're not going to have a very big marketing budget, this will probably what you end up using as well. You're going to have marketing that does Facebook events or word of mouth, and it's going to take time to build that. There's also a very strong hurry up and wait process to this, to making an event like this. You're going to start, say, in January, work really fast to get some of your forms ready, send them out, and then you're going to wait for a month to hear back. And then you're going to work really fast again to send out replies, and then you're going to wait a lot. So you're going to want to really build in time that you have plenty of time for that hurry up and wait process. Something we've learned from doing Comic Cons for the last 5 years is it takes about a year to put together. We have found minimum you're going to want to have 9 months. So you're not going to put an event like this on next month or 2 months or 3 months. You really want to start planning a year out. And we usually start planning the next year's event about 2 weeks after the last one finished. So it takes a lot of planning. Our next tip for you in starting an event, an out-of-the-box event, is to really know your mission. Ask yourself, what is the goal of your organization, institution, and what is the goal you're trying to achieve with this event? And like Tara said earlier, it doesn't have to be a comic con. It could be something different if it aligns with your mission. So like we said earlier, we're the Evansville Museum of Art, History, and Science. So our event focuses on the art, history, and science of geek culture. Our event, our goal for this event when we created it was to try a new type of museum experience for our institution, something a little less traditional and something that wasn't just for adults or just for kids, but was something that people could learn and experience together. So know your mission and know your goal and tie it into your mission. So for example, if you're work with a historic house museum, you might want to focus on sewing techniques from a certain time period and relate it back to cosplay. If you're a botanic garden, you might focus on plant-themed superheroes. If you're a philharmonic organization, you might want to focus on movies or TV soundtracks. There's a lot of different directions you can go.
So for example, like I said, we have our mission is art. So we have focused on things like creating your own art where people actually get to sit and make their own comic book. We've had professional artists put on things like develop your style through sketchbook, where they encourage people to just keep practicing art until you find what style is your style to make you stand out. In the history part of our focus, we have a nationally known newspaper comic illustrator called Carl K. Connect, who is from the era of pre-photographs in the newspaper. So he used to be the person sketching all the events and locally. And he also made political cartoons that are still seen today around. And then we have the science of geekdom, which is a lot of options. But one of the really fun things is we have our own planetarium here at our museum. So we can look at planets and space and look at the astronomy of science fiction and take a look at what would a planet like Tatooine look like? Is there one out there? Lots of Martians and monsters from the moon. And so we take a look at those. What's Mars really like? What's the moon like? So it's really fun to tie it back to your institution and remind people that we're having fun today, but we're cool all the time.
Our next tip for you in getting your own out-of-the-box event going is to do your research. You're going to want to look at what other events are happening in your area. And when we say your area, we have found of a distance of about 2 to 3 hours driving is about as far as people will travel. So in our case, we don't super worry about a comic event going on in Chicago, but we do know when Gen Con is going on in Indy because people will travel that far. So you're going to want to see what else is happening in your area. You're going to want to know when these events are, how much are they charging, and what exactly do they offer? And most importantly, you're going to take this information and really make sure you can clearly state what makes your event unique. The geek community will go to all these events, and it's going to be best for you if you can give them a unique experience. You're also going to want to keep it local. Now, if you've ever heard people talk about the ComicCon, they're referring to the San Diego ComicCon. And that, I think we looked up, has about 30,000 people attend over a week period. And
yeah, they have people from 30 different countries, about 30,000 people. However, they also have things like Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp, who probably aren't going to come to your Comic-Con at least the first year. So you're probably not going to see 30,000 people at your event. Although if you do, good luck.
Yeah, and call us. We'd like to know how you did that. But that's a great thing. Yours is going to be unique. And an example I want to share is a couple of years ago, I was covering the front desk at the museum, and a lady came in to ask us about our art collection. And I told her about it. And she said, no, thanks. I've been to the Louvre. And I did not know how to respond to that. What I should have said is, well, we have different art than the Louvre. So that's kind of what our point is here. You're going to have different celebrities, different things to do than big cons, and really highlight that. That is an asset to your event. And it helps you really celebrate what makes your community so awesome. Okay. So you might be asking yourself, well, we're located here in southwestern Indiana. It's highlighted in red. That's Vanderbilt County. And we serve Illinois and parts of Kentucky. And you might be asking, how geeky is southwestern Indiana? Well, the answer is pretty geeky. We have hundreds of local artists, authors, enthusiasts, vendors, and fans here. And they help us make this community, this event possible. And now we also have some celebrities.
Yeah, we are lucky enough to have awesome celebrities locally, such as Kent Estep, which is a name you probably haven't heard before, but you may have heard of some of the things he does. He is a Hollywood special effects designer doing computerized special effects for little movie programs like Marvel's Age of Ultron. You may have heard of How to Train Your Dragon. If you're a gamer, you might have heard of things like Overwatch or World of Warcraft. He was also part of a small project called The Matrix, where they had to invent this thing called bullet time that no one had done before for a movie. So, you know, he has a little bit of a portfolio of cool things. And interestingly enough, he grew up just outside of Evansville in Newburgh, which would be a suburb of Evansville if we were big enough to have a suburb. And he went to the University of Evansville right here. So he is an awesome local resource who is also one of the nicest men on the planet and brings us cookies.
Brings us cookies and sometimes prizes from his studio he works at, so to give away at our event. So that is super cool. Also here located in Evansville is Kyle Starks and Chris Schweizer, and they are both Eisner nominated comic book writers and creators. Kyle Starks writes a graphic novel that goes along with TV show you might have heard of, Rick and Morty, and they live here and they come to our event. Also, Nate Powell, who is a New York Times bestselling Robert F. Kennedy Book Award, 3 Eisner Awards. I actually had to cut off like half of his awards to fit on the slide here. And he lives in Bloomington, and he has come down and supported our event. So what we really want you to take away from this is the importance of finding your celebrities. You probably have 1 or 2 hiding in your backyard. And these big name presenters is going to get you the publicity you need to have a successful event. It's going to get you social media likes. It might get you an article in the newspaper. This will really help you make your event successful. Okay. The next thing we're going to suggest to you is you're going to want to tell everyone you know you're doing a Comic-Con, because you never know who has a secret interest or skill or connection. For example, they haven't come to our event yet, but one of our colleagues is the mother of the lady who designs the costumes for The Handmaid's Tale, and we had no idea, and that was just super cool. Half of the people we have found out has been through somebody else. The other thing we're really going to recommend to you is that social media is your friend. These types of events very much build on word of mouth. So you're going to get your event on Facebook as soon as possible. So our tip for you is you're going to want to make your Facebook event right now. fact, our plan, we were just going to end the presentation so everyone could go and make it. No, we're joking, but really it is that important. So TV and newspaper interviews are great. Paid advertising is nice on Facebook too, but nothing beats having your Facebook event and having it early. You're going to want to, leading up to your event, post regular updates, memes, special guest announcements. About a year from it, we will post once a month. Leading up to, we might post once a week, and then the week of the event, we'll post once or twice a day. So you'll keep that in people's minds. Another lesson we learned from the event is the importance of pricing and dates. The geek community is large, but it's not big enough to support 2 events the same weekend. So you're going to want to know when those other events are happening and make sure you plan around that. The other big thing is the importance of not overpricing your event. One year we ended up raising the price because we had a special exhibition. And even though we had the special exhibition here, and we had lots of cool celebrities and we had more activities, and it was even bigger than the year before, less people came because of the price. And they felt the event wasn't as good because the audience was smaller. So much of the importance and success of this event is through the socialization and people getting to hang out. So our tip to you is to keep it cheaper because you're not aiming for exclusivity.
Oh, next part is be organized about literally everything. Because you are starting so far in advance, it is very easy to lose track of that note you wrote down about that one artist who wants to come and you told them you'd send them an email when it gets closer, and then you realize that Post-it note has disappeared 3 months ago. So spreadsheets or other ways of organizing it are very, very important. Personally, I love to use the Excel spreadsheets for literally everything. As you can see in the image, everything from the list of everyone we've been in contact to I use Excel to map out our vendor room to make sure that we have enough space for all of our vendor tables. We have lots of walkway in between. We are complying with fire code, ADA requirements, and also keeping in mind that sometimes cosplay means someone has a giant broadsword strapped to their back or a giant set of 6-foot wings that really need a little more space to walk around. So it's nice to have a better spatial awareness of where things are before you actually start setting up tables and realize it's too congested. So organize, organize, organize. Think of all the little details in advance so they're not stressing.
To give you an idea of the way our event ends up, each year we have approximately 20 different special guests. We'll have about 10 different panel presentations going on throughout the day, and we do a one-day event. We do a Saturday from about 11 to 5. We'll have between 15 and 20 artists and vendors in our vendor space. We'll have about 5 hands-on activities throughout the museum, usually 1 cosplay contest, several food trucks, and just so much fun. And our results, on average, we'll have about 300 people attend the event. We have had as many as 650. It has ended up, the Geek and ComicCon, being the highest attended paid day for our museum for several years. So that's not counting our free days. We have had some free days with higher attendance, but not a lot actually. So ComicCon generally brings in the most people to the museum every year. Our expenses are anywhere between $500 to $1,000. And that is mostly volunteer food. We believe very strongly in feeding our volunteers and feeding them well. So we'll have food throughout the day, and we usually make about $3,000 after all of our expenses are accounted for the museum. So you might be asking, what type of resources does the Evansville Museum have in order to pull this off? Well, just to give you a sense of scale, we have an annual budget of about $1 million. We have 11 full-time staff, 19 in total, and our average attendance is around 25,000 people. The Evansville population is a little less than 150,000. And of course, we have amazing volunteers and interns. But in all honesty, really ComicCon is just the 2 of us, especially in the planning and leading up to it. An education curator and the museum's receptionist, who are both very good with Excel spreadsheets and problem solving. So what we really want you to take away from this presentation is you do not need a huge team of people. You don't need a huge budget. It does very much help to have a building. I'm going to be honest about that. If you have to rent a space, it might be a little more difficult. But having a building and people who are passionate about geeky stuff is really all you need to make this happen. So have we convinced you? Since we can't see you, we're going to assume we have. If we haven't, we'll have time in the Q&A to try to answer your questions later. But we would like to share a few other things that we'd like you to know that we think are important for your event to be successful. Our next tip for you is plan for next year, this year. So you're going to want to get next year's date on the calendar, your institution's calendar, the citywide calendar, make sure other cons in the area know, and get that on the calendar and start handing out save the dates. So the people who come to your event this year will want to come back next year. Also, make your Facebook event for next year before your old one lapses. And we've tried to just change the date in the Facebook event, but it won't let you do that. But if you make a second Facebook event and put it in the first, people will join that one and you'll help keeping the momentum going. Our other tip is not to bother with virtual. Like probably everyone on this Zoom presentation, we tried virtual in 2020 and it was just not the same. So much of this event is about the interaction with the people and we weren't really able to do that with virtual. So if we had to make the choice again, we would just cancel the event. Now, you might have a different experience and you might be really successful at getting a virtual event going. And if that, we'd love to learn from you how you do that. Okay, remember how we talked about planning for everything? We're going to give you a caveat there. So I'm about as type A as physically possible. She has a much more reasonable level of organization. I don't know where I was going with that. But you're going to want to plan for everything, but things are going to go wrong. Vendors, panelists, special guests are going to cancel on you at the last minute. You might get a dinosaur stuck in the elevator. Not that that's happened to us. You might have a colleague forget that you have the event going on and then put an exhibition in the middle of the room and you have to plan your vendor room around it. Not that that's happened. You're going to want to plan ahead enough that you can respond to these types of things when they happen. If you wait until the last minute, it's just going to fall apart. But if you plan ahead, you're much more likely to have a successful event. Okay, do you want to?
Sure. One of the things to definitely keep in mind, especially if you are at a more traditional museum or gallery that's tends to be a little bit more conservative, keep in mind that some of your colleagues may be a little bit confused, or your board of directors who have never experienced something like a ComicCon or something of the sort. So be prepared, one, to explain it to them, but two, to maybe have to move forward and convince them to trust you while they're still confused. So be prepared to just be reassuring. I will assure you, in 5 years, we have not yet broken the museum. We haven't damaged any artwork. Everything has been fine. Nothing has caught fire at Comic-Con. It hasn't at Comic-Con.
I know, I enjoyed the caveat there.
So just be prepared to just explain things to your board of directors or your sponsors or the artists that are on display in your museum. Because sometimes if you're working with living artists, some of them might get confused about what you're doing in space. So just be prepared.
Yes, and we've been really lucky that the museum's director has been very supportive. She's not a geek. She doesn't really get into this stuff, but she has given us the support to try this. And if you're in a position of authority, I can tell you how important that is, that if someone wants to try something new, give them the freedom to try something as well. Plus, there's nothing quite like the experience of having to explain to your boss what a furry is. That's quite one of the memorable moments of my career. One of our other tips is the importance of respecting geek culture. This is a culture, this is a community, and ultimately it would be best if you're a member of this community in order to pull off an event. That can be said of many, many types of events. You're going to want to build relationships, and if you're trying to put on an event like this just for money, they're going to tell, and they're not going to come back because these types of events grow on themselves every single year. Something else is these events are often places that attract LGBTQ plus teens, and you're going to want to make sure this is a safe and welcoming space for them to be themselves. So our second to last slide before we open it up to Q&A are just a few warnings. This is a lot of work. This is not something you can just easily do. To be honest, we have done quite a bit of this outside of work, but it's also really, really fun. We recommend that to take care of yourself mid-event, or you might forget to eat and you might forget to drink and you might faint mid-event and really freak out your volunteers. Now that's happened. And also, if you take anything away from this presentation at all, do not allow people to give away free stickers. And it's okay if they sell them, but if they're free, people might stick them to things like windows or garbage cans or tables. Now that's happened, but just don't do it. Don't give away free stickers. So our very last slide is our contact information. If you can't tell, we love talking about Comic-Cons, and we would love to talk to you more about a potential event you'd like to do. We'd be happy to share our vendor forms, our program booklet, and give you advice. So I think our communities are better for doing events like this, and we'd love to help you make this happen. So I will stop talking, and I think we'll shut off the share screen, and if people would like to ask questions, they certainly can.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Feel free to turn on your mics and your videos and join in, right?
Yes. I saw a couple of our staff and volunteers of our own museum have been answering questions as we go along. But I do want to highlight, someone asked, DMH Studio asked who makes the costumes and props and the photos that we've been showing. All of that is community made. We have a group called the 501st, who are professional cosplayers for Star Wars characters that come, but also a lot of people just make their own cosplay. And they will come as any character you allow them to come as. So you will see stormtroopers on the loose, you will see Star Trek characters. I myself have a couple of anime character costumes. So if you open this up to people to be part of it, they will be happy to be part of it. What else do we have?
Stuff about dinosaurs and elevators. That's really important. And that goes back to planning ahead. Make sure to measure your dinosaurs ahead of time to know exactly how long they are, and to measure a museum's freight elevator, because you might get the dinosaur stuck in the elevator, and then you'll need to pivot and make sure the dinosaur comes up the back gate instead of the museum's main front entrance. This is extremely important that everyone should be writing down.
I bet that's never happened.
No, not that it's ever happened.
Not that it's happened, you know, not that it's happened. Yeah, yeah. I have a question. So you guys have been doing this for 5 years, right? Was there a moment when you're like, oh, wow, this is a thing? Or was it just something that you wanted to do as an ongoing event?
For me, it was the end of the first day we did it, the very first year, because we had so many people, and we had a lot of people who were, I think they were thinking this was going to be a museum event, and it was like a baby Comic-Con. And one of our friends named John comes up to me and he goes, oh my goodness, you did like a real con. And we're like, yeah, that was our goal, but thank you for saying so. So that really meant a lot. It wasn't just a museum event with a Comic-Con flavor. It was a real con, just that for me. What about you?
Yeah, that was a big part. I think a little bit of it was before the first Comic-Con even happened, because it started out, it was going to be a smaller event. We do a thing called Super Saturday every month, which is a family activity day with hands-on activities and crafts and special speakers. And the first Comic-Con sort of started as that, but we were lucky enough to have someone who's a longtime friend of the museum who used to work for Marvel. And then we got contacted by another person who is a film aficionado and friends with people like Chris Schweizer and all those other, celebrities that we found. So they were like, hey, what if they help? What if this becomes a part of it? What if we add this? And it sort of just built beyond a fun activity day to a full con before we even did the first one. And then by the end of it, everyone was like, when's next year? And we're like, well, I guess this is recurring now. This isn't just one awesome event. This is now a thing.
I think we had an idea of what we wanted it to be, but it was the people who contacted us that really they were the reason it ended up the way it was. And that's when we said, you know, it was a very community driven, centered event. It would not be what it was without them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question. So we at Wonderlab in Bloomington, we haven't quite done a full con yet. What we have done in the past is like a Star Wars Day or Star Trek Day, because we have a Janeway statue that's right outside our museum now, because she's going to be born in Bloomington, which is great. But for those events, it was very much what you were saying, as in like science museum program with the spice of Star Wars, with the spice of Star Trek. How can we encourage our board members and like our executive directors to look further than that, to try to reach new audiences?
Well, that's a great question. You know, something I might have skipped over is the people who come to a ComicCon most of them are not museum members. And most of them are not the typical museum goer. I mean, there certainly is overlap, but we get a lot of teenagers and we get a lot of adults who would not normally come. And it's interesting, we see they come back for this event every year. So you're going to bring in different people, and that's a nice way to expand your audience. I find one of the most successful ways to pitch the event isn't necessarily what's happening, but that it makes money. And people will, it's a very low expense event in comparison. So we make, if I could do math, we make 3 times as much as we spend.
Yeah, so we're roughly 300 to 400% profitable, which has made our board of directors a little more willing to like let the craziness go on. Because like I said, we haven't broken anything and we're bringing in money. So it's hard to argue with us once the numbers come in. The real thing is going to be that first time. So pitching it as, hey guys, remember we did the Star Wars Day? This is that, just a little bigger. And drawing in like having a community member who is involved, like if you got someone like Kenny Step, and going, hey, look at this person's professional portfolio. This isn't some random people we're pulling in off the street. Like these people know what they're talking about. It's going to be a valuable contribution to our institution and the community. And really, you know, just like I said before, you know, expect confusion, but just reassure them this is something people have done before. It's not, we're not jumping over the shark.
Oh yeah, okay. I thought, isn't it the other way? The shark jumps over you? And I'm like, no, you jump. Anyway, sorry, sharks aside. Great question. Thank you for asking.
Anyone else have any questions? Feel free to turn your microphone on or pull it up in chat if you're feeling a little shy. We will answer both.
I have another question. Do you charge your artists for a table?
We do, but we try to keep it as affordable as possible. So we usually have about 3 table sizes, and including as small as about half a table. And how much was that this year? Was it 20
like
bucks?
$20 or $25. It
Oh,
was
wow.
not a lot.
Yeah.
And then our biggest space was only like 60 bucks or something, which was a 10 by 10 space. So the idea is, one of the reasons is if you ask people to be vendors and then it's free, they may back out on you because they haven't committed anything. So like you'll end up with a bunch of vendors that they said they're coming and then they don't show up because something better came up. So having that little accountability, it's also great because it allows smaller artists to participate, because we have a lot of people who are just independent artists who make cool geeky stuff like keychains or dice bags, or they make fan art of different, you know, animes. And so you don't want to charge like $500 like it would be if they bought a table for the San Diego Comic-Con, because you are celebrating local. But at the same time, like I said, you don't want a cool artist to just back out because another con came up that they thought they could make, you know, better attendance at. So keep that reasonable pricing too, but also most of them are pretty understanding that you as an event have expenses and you need to charge people. So we haven't had too much like pushback on that.
How do you find local artists and local vendors specifically for cons? Especially if you don't normally have a con in your area. In Bloomington, I don't think we normally do.
It was mostly the Facebook event, I think.
Yes. Once we had the first couple of people to say, hey, these people are coming, a lot of people would we put up there, if you are interested in being a vendor, contact us and we will send you our vendor form. So a lot of them, they found us rather than the other way around. A couple of them were people that have been artists at the museum before, because we do have a couple of community exhibitions where people can enter and compete to be exhibited. So a couple of people had been on display at the museum before, but most of them, they reached out to us. I see a question in the chat that some adults think of this as a children's event, but most events are teen adult education. Is this an issue? We haven't had too much issue with that. A lot of people, it has been a lot of teenagers and adults. A lot of that comes with how you market it into social media. You know, once you know what your panels are, putting up the panel description so they know that this is not everything is meet the T-Rex, because we do have that and it's great for kids and they get to take photos with a real like person dressed as a T-Rex. But putting up there things like how to get into professional comic book collecting, like it comes across very much, oh, this is not a children's program. So you just have to tell your community that this is not a kids event. And highlight which parts are and which parts aren't, because also we do have a lot of families with little kids that are also a great contribution, and it's always really cute to see tiny little Jedis running around. So don't discourage that either, because they're adorable. And they'll grow into adult geeks someday.
Yeah, and we try to have a little bit something for everything. A lot of our hands-on activities, the create your own comic book activity table and invent your own superhero persona can be for all ages. We try to have in our gaming lounge. I don't know if we mentioned we had board games.
Oh yeah, we have a board game gaming lounge with like 50+ board games that are just sitting out for people to play whenever they want. So if they have downtimes between presentation, they can sit down and play a game of Star Wars version of Life the Game, or we had someone leading an actual tabletop RPG. We played Frostgrave this year. So like those are fun because we have different age levels of games. So we have some little kid games like Hi-Ho Cheerio and stuff, but then like more involved games like I think we have a Battlestar Galactic game of Risk.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
tabletop RPG, translate. That means if you've all heard of Dungeons and Dragons, where you have the big table with a map and all the little characters, everybody's rolling their dice to attack, that's what that means. It is a tabletop fantasy, usually, sometimes futuristic, sometimes, you know, where you have your own character and you're working together to complete a task, usually by rolling dice to attack and move and stuff, but it's fun. You should actually research it.
It's really fun. And the question I see here, did you borrow those games from a local store? The museum does have a small collection of our own, but a lot of these are games people bring because like we said, it's a social event. So people will own a game and they're like, I want to play this game with somebody, and they'll go to the gaming lounge and there will be people there. So that's part of the reason having so many people are there, because that's what they're looking to do. So a surprisingly large amount of this event is people bringing stuff.
Yeah, we are lucky enough. The museum does own a small collection of games. We actually had a grant at some point in the past few years for a family gaming night. So we have a small collection, but like she said, some of them are just people bring their own the day of. We also partnered with people before. Some libraries, you might ask in your community, sometimes they have board games in the library you can check out. So you may actually be able to borrow a board game from a library if you need something, or invite the library to be part of your event and let them run the board games. That's also nice. So there are options if you don't have your own board games. Any other questions?
Scrolling up in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, someone asked when next year's Geek and ComicCon is, and Margaret Helms, who works here, was kind enough to answer, but if anyone wasn't looking at chat, next year's Geek and ComicCon is August 27th, 2022. It will be awesome. Hopefully COVID will be totally gone by then, and everyone will be able to be in cosplay without a medical mask on top of their stormtrooper. That has been fun to be creative in your cosplay to make a mask that matches.
Yeah.
But it will be August. We typically do the 4th Saturday of August. That has moved a couple of times because of community events or things like that. But August, come join us. We have fun.
We have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Let's see.
One year, I guess it just is a funny story. Our neighbors across the street called the police because they saw all these people in costumes and masks and they thought something was going on. And the police were really nice and they came and learned about it and thought it was hilarious. That was funny. I actually didn't learn about it till after the event, but that was, exciting to find out the police get called. We have a question. Did you have to convince anyone that adults in costumes are safe? Oh, that's a great question.
I suppose that sort of ties into that question.
Yes. Oh, and do you want to take it or?
We haven't had too much issue with, because once you're in the event, people who come to the event are usually know what's going on. The most confusion has been like outside, because people looking at a museum expect a certain type of people to be going into a museum. So there were a couple of raised eyebrows when you have things like Gandalf and Darth Vader walking into a museum together, which sounds like the start of a joke. So there have been a couple of times with that. Also, adults, a lot of times, like they have their little kids with them. So little kids will see a character and want to run up to them. Like I said, people who come to a Comic-Con usually expect that the people in cosplay are fine. You can take a picture with their kids. So we haven't had too much of an issue with like scaring people or creeping people out too much. Though we have had a few confused members in the museum who don't know what Comic-Con is happening and they want to really come look at a painting. And there is Darth Vader hanging out in the gallery. But for the most part, everyone's sort of been very understanding, because Comic-Con is a word that people expect to know. And with marketing, people know something is going on. So it's not usually too big of a deal.
And we have a program booklet that we hand out to every guest, and that includes all the panels. It usually includes if we have a sponsor or not. And we do have rules for the event. And one of which is all the costumes must be family friendly, because some cons do kind of an evening event where people can get a little more R-rated, and we don't do this here. So we do say it's family friendly. We do say if your costume isn't family appropriate, we will ask you to modify it. A lot of people will have fake weapons, and most fake weapons look fake, but we do state that we will piece tie, which means we will render them unable to slash something. This year I had a young lady come up to me. She had a fake gun and asked me if it was okay if she had it on display. It looked a little too real for me. For just everyone's safety, I said, can you just not take it out of your bag? And she was totally cool with it. So generally people
live stream was able to extend John's stay through November 30th.
Sorry.
So they got the voice message while I was in a meeting. So I'll
Dr. Terry Witt, your microphone is on. But cosplayers usually are very understanding about rules of cosplay. The people who go to the trouble of making a cosplay contest or cosplay outfit are usually invested enough to be very understanding. If you're like, guys, that's a really epic lightsaber, but please don't pull it out and start hitting people with it. So we haven't had too much trouble with the cosplayers causing problems. Okay, any other questions, concerns? Looking for inspiration on your own event? Thoughts of your own event that you'd like to bounce off other people in the comments? We like to conspire with people. That's what we're good at.
Why did you decide to do one day instead of like a whole weekend? Did you mention that?
No, we didn't, but that's a lovely question. We got really tired. That's the honest. So a lot of events do 3 days. They often do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we tried it one year. We just did 2 days, right?
We did 2 days. We did Saturday and Sunday. It becomes hard to balance which panel should go on which day. Is there enough content for each day? Have you watered it down too much if you don't have enough panelists? If we got to a situation where instead of having, a dozen people contacting us to do panels, we suddenly had 30 people wanting to do panels, then we might, re-expand that. But you don't want too much downtime where everyone is bored and twiddling their thumbs and going, why did I spend $20 to be here? There's nothing going on. So you want to avoid that as much as you can. So you want to make everybody's time worth their money so that they tell everyone that you were cool so that next year they come again. Because if someone has a bad experience once and you get negative reviews from them and they tell their friends it was bad, then that snowballs into your next year taking a hit too. So just 2 years was a little too watered down and too much
Yeah.
effort on our part for the returns.
And I'm going to be honest, going home Saturday night, laying on the couch, and then trying to get up Sunday morning and running a day, it was really hard. Another thing, I don't know if we said, we charge right now, we found most successful, we just charge normal museum admission. So that's $12 for adults, $8 for kids, and it's free for museum members. We've tried doing a little higher, but we just found that's the sweet spot. So it is just normal and museum admission for us.
Right. So our main profit comes from the volume of people, lots of people coming rather than a smaller group paying more, because we want this to be accessible to as many people as possible, especially because it does appeal to the younger crowd, high school, college age, who are on, kind of a shoestring budget and may not be able to afford the cool events, but will spring for something a little smaller. So.
And these type of events, I don't know if you ever do a day-long event. For our Super Saturdays, we find people come and stay for about 2 hours. For a Comic-Con, people generally will come in the morning and stay the entire length of time. So having spaces where people can sit down, take a break, get something from a food truck and eat is important, because making sure they can be here the whole day without feeling they want to leave.
Anybody else? We've got a few more minutes before we should release our Jingo and Sarah to run the next programs.
I have another question. Did you guys get any pushback at any point? And if so, like whether it's from the museum staff or the community, and if so, how did you deal with that?
I don't know if pushback's the right word. I don't know if they always know everything that goes into the event. So like,
so not really pushback. Sometimes we get lack of encouragement. So it falls into that, be prepared for your staff and board to be confused. Some of them assume that because it is a one-day event like our Super Saturday, that clearly this is something you can throw together in 2 weeks like you can Super Saturday. It's no big deal. So when you tell them 6 months out, hey, I can't do that because that day I need to be in meetings for Comic-Con, they're like, why are you working on Comic-Con? It's not till August. It's like March. What are you doing? So just be prepared for people, like I said, to just not understand.
Yeah.
And to be confused and not know when they should be saying, hey guys, good job. That was epic. Because they're just like, oh, it was another Super Saturday. Good job.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe. And then sometimes like we had a small misunderstanding with the calendar with something got scheduled in the middle of the big space we need. And they were
it didn't occur to them it was be as big of an issue as it was. So they didn't think to tell us as far in advance as would have been nice.
Yeah, they were like, well, you can reconfigure. And we're like, well, yeah, but we can, and we did. But we have this measured out to like the half foot.
Yeah.
And so we had to redo it. And I mean, it all worked out, but it's little things like that.
Yeah, which might be a little bit of, you just need to make sure to tell everyone, hey, this is really important. I know it seems like I'm not doing a lot, but I am. Please, be nice to me. But it doesn't have, like I said, we haven't had anyone be like mean about it. We haven't had anybody intentionally be like, this is stupid. Why are you doing it? None of the board members have objected and been like, we don't feel like this is appropriate for an institution of cultural, integrity. People are usually pretty excited to see new things happening. So we haven't had too much trouble. Thankfully, we've had a wonderful board of directors. Like she said, Mary, our executive director, is amazing. But yeah, prepare for confusion and just people to not quite know what you're doing.
I see we got another question. Are the vendors and food trucks happy? I've been and then see some table with no one visiting. Generally, yes. We had one year where because of the special exhibit, we raised the price a bit and we didn't have quite the same attendance. But overall, that's what's so important, having the sheer number of people. And if you charge, let's say you charge $30 for someone to come in and they have only $40 to spend, they're not going to spend that at your vendor spots. So by keeping your price low, you're going to make sure there's more money to go around in the vendor room. So overall, a lot of them come back year after year. Mm-hmm. Something you can do is we usually naturally just get a balance of what type of vendors we get, but you're going to want to look and make sure you don't have 17 comic book vendors and only one, mask maker. We usually have authors and people who make geek crafts, and then 2 comic book vendors. Make sure there's variety so they're not competing with each other. And the same goes with food trucks. I think we had 2 main meals this year plus a dessert.
Yeah, keeping them variety. And we also do a lot of pre-advertising our vendors onto our Facebook page and Instagram stuff so that people know, hey, this person comes and they make really awesome necklaces. So someone might bring money specifically expecting to buy something. Whereas if they don't never been to a Comic-Con, we don't know what goes on there. So they may not expect to spend money. So that can be another drawback. And another important thing about advertising. Another thing is like authors don't often sell like a huge amount of books, but they also know what networking is and they know the importance of getting their face out there. So sometimes they're a little more chill. Occasionally you'll get a vendor that is a little bit, not necessarily like they're unhappy, they're just a naturally kind of grouchy person. So don't get offended if someone like is a little grumpy with you.
Which I take immediately to heart.
Yeah.
So.
Karen immediately feels like she's dying in the corner. You have to understand that like I can't control the number of people. I have 600 people here, and if they're not buying something from you, it's probably not my fault. So yes, you know, there can be some pushback from vendors, but for the most part, they also understand, you know, most of them gone to events before. They know what it's like to sell at an event. They know that it's going to vary every time.
But definitely approaching the event with a win-win-win mentality that, you know, if they sell lots of stuff, it's good for you. If you get lots of people, it's good for them. And I know sometimes watching events, it's like, oh, if we get as many vendors, we'll get all these fees. No, you want them to be successful too. And that's great because you're working with local artists, a lot of them getting their start. You want them to naturally be successful. So try to set everyone up for winning.
Yeah, because keep in mind, this artist that started at your Comic-Con may someday be really, really famous. And you can be like, I started them. Yeah. It was me. I gave him the first break. He drew me this great picture of Batman. So yeah, just keeping in mind that everyone needs to be balanced. It's another that don't exploit this for money. You will make money, but that's not your only goal.
Are there any other questions?
By the way, Jingo's a fabulous illustrator. So, you know.
We know. We've seen his website already.
Yes.
Everyone else in here, while you're here, go say hi to his website. He has some really cute donuts.
And monsters. I really liked the monsters. Those were cool.
Well, thanks.
And I live in Bloomington, and we've got some cool celebrities around here too. So, you know.
See? Like people don't think of Indiana as like celebrity central, but we are actually really lucky because the University of Evansville has a world-renowned theater department who have gone on to be in Hollywood movies, Broadway productions. So we occasionally tap into that of, hey, what alumni are available? Which you also may have a university with a theater department that even if they're not a headliner, you know, it may not be Robert Downey Jr., but hey, I was in a movie with Robert Downey Jr. is pretty cool too.
And there are hidden gems all over this state. So right in Bloomington, we've got musicians, authors, actors that are nationally known. Madison, Indiana had a Frank Sinatra movie in the 50s.
Yeah,
produced downtown. I mean,
yeah, and you don't think about that.
Right.
We in Evansville, we were the filming location of A League of Their Own, which just things people are like, why? Why was that in Indiana? So yeah, there's a lot
Comic-Con at Otter Field.
Ooh, that'd be fun. Well,
so yeah, be prepared to look out there. Also, like we said before, this doesn't have to be a Comic-Con. If you find out that you have someone who is a professional costumer who specifically does Victorian period, and you want to turn this into a Victorian high tea themed event where you do things like the language of flowers and period craft and teach everyone how to do a traditional waltz and a foxtrot, like make a whole day of that. Like any topic can be turned into an awesome event if you are willing to be creative and if you can find the resources to pull upon. Just be willing to, you know, look under all the rocks to find the professionals.
And it's really nice to have a partner when you do this event because so many of our ideas, we have half the time we suggest something just to make the other one laugh. And then we went, oh, that's not terrible. And then we end up doing it and ends up being very successful. So be prepared to spitball and then come back to it and go,
hey, actually, that crazy idea, I know someone. So be prepared to have fun in the planning stage because that translates to fun at the end. Okay, I think we have just a couple more minutes before, the people who are actually in charge need to go elsewhere. So if anyone else has one last question, that would be awesome. If not, you have our contact information. So if you have a more specific question, or like we said, if you want examples of program booklets, how we keep track of our vendor information, the applications, all that stuff, we are happy to send them to you. Just feel free to ask.
And we have recorded the session, and in a couple of weeks it will be available through this same platform, so you can show it to your boards.
Yeah, or if you want to take our examples of paperwork to your board and be like, look, someone else has a structure we can build from. We're not stumbling through the dark by ourselves. Feel free to pretend that we are professionals and that you have a professional consultant. We can fake professionalism for at least 5 minutes.
Without the dinosaur.
Or with the dinosaur.
I mean, the dinosaur has a bow tie. He's very professional.
He has his own business, actually. Yeah. He has a whole fleet of miniature dinosaurs too. So don't judge the dinosaur. He's doing well.
All right, Jingo, what do you think? Should we tie a bow around this one?
Yeah, looks like we're good to go. I don't think we have any other questions. But yeah, thank you, Karen and Tara, for your time and for sharing your experiences in organizing your Geek and ComicCon event. For anyone interested, next year, it's in August 27, 2022. It's already on their Facebook. It's already on Facebook, like they said.
It's already events. We actually have the event made, so we can put the save the date in the program from last year, so everyone's put the date at home. They are not allowed to forget.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great. Well, again, thank you so much, Karen and Tara, and thank you everyone for joining today, day 2. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Everybody have a great day.